Welcome to Alcoa's General Environmental Awareness Training Program. Thank you for joining us today. In the next 20 minutes, we will be discussing general information about our environmental policy, air pollution regulations, water treatment regulations, waste management regulations, proper materials management, our Emergency Response Action Plan, and the Toxic Substance Control Act. Let's begin with Messina Operations Environmental Policy.
All employees of Alcoa's Messina operations will operate in a manner that respects our community and our global environment.
In support of this commitment, it is our goal to comply with all legal and corporate requirements.
We will continually improve our environmental performance.
We will prevent pollution.
And we will maintain open communication.
We are dedicated to leaving no environmental footprint.
Messina is ISO 14001 registered. When we talk about ISO 14001, we're talking about an environmental management system. A management system consists of the people and procedures that are put together to control and reduce our impact on the environment.
There are numerous operational controls required in order to reduce our environmental impact. This means installing, operating, and running equipment properly, monitoring and controlling certain parameters, reacting when problems occur, following a set of standard operating procedures, doing maintenance on our equipment, calibrating our instruments, recording data in logs, strip charts, or in the computer, and being trained on how to control your process.
What are some problems that might occur that you should properly react to? If you get anything in your eye, utilize the emergency eye wash station. If you see an oil spill, report it, and then clean it up yourself, or ask others to help you. Communications are how we share important information and ask for clarification when we need it. If you have any general questions about your job, you should always contact your supervisor. You can also contact a member of the environmental personnel. If your supervisor or environmental personnel aren't available, contact the guard. Now we will discuss air pollution regulations. This is the Blue Goose, which is an air scrubber. All sources of emissions from this plant are regulated by our Title V air permit. The permit requires us to operate in a manner that minimizes our impact on the environment. You should know how your equipment affects the air pollution, and you should follow set standard operating procedures meant to prevent unnecessary emissions. Now we will discuss water treatment. There are two rules we must comply with. This is the Clean Water Act, which gives the EPA authority to set effluent limits and water quality standards to ensure protection of the receiving water. The second rule is the State Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, which requires a permit to be first obtained. Otherwise, a discharge will be considered illegal. Alcoa has State Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, or SPEEDIES, permit for numerous outfalls throughout the site. Best management practices are used to minimize our impacts at outfalls. These practices include containing and cleaning up spills immediately, not storing wastes outside, maintaining good housekeeping, making sure all employees are properly trained, and executing regular inspections. The water quality from each outfall must be sampled every day. How confident are you in the purity of our water? After the water has been collected, the sample must be tested. We can limit our impact at outfalls by only putting clean water down the drain. No processed water, chemicals, hazardous waste, petroleum products, soap, or detergents should ever go down the drain. There should also be no outdoor washing of equipment. Now we will discuss waste management. Wastes include municipal garbage and trash such as non-recyclable wastes, recyclable paper, recyclable cans, recyclable cardboard, which should be disposed of in the proper dumpster. Hazardous waste, which should be disposed of in red drums. And non-hazardous waste, which should be disposed of in green drums.
Now we will discuss trash and recycling. Waste stream trash dumpsters are for the following wastes: non-paper office waste, lunchroom waste, and non-oily trash from production areas. Paper and cardboard can be recycled as long as they are uncontaminated. There are numerous materials that should not be thrown away in general trash containers. Non-acceptable materials include aerosol cans, batteries, leather gloves, light bulbs, oil, solvent, or pitch contaminated materials, paint cans, and recyclable paper. All of these are to be handled in a specific manner. Large batteries should be properly disposed of on wooden pallets and wrapped in plastic. Now we will discuss hazardous waste. What is a hazardous waste? There are 4 ways a waste can meet the definition of a hazardous waste. First, the waste can be specifically listed by the EPA or DEC. Second, the waste can fail a characteristic test. Third, the waste can be mixed with a listed hazardous waste or a hazardous waste that fails a characteristic test. Fourth, the waste can be derived from a listed hazardous waste. Any waste becomes a hazardous waste as soon as it comes in contact with another hazardous waste. Remember, hazardous waste should always be stored in red drums. The first definition of a hazardous waste is a listed waste. What are some listed wastes? Listed wastes include solvents, such as methyl ethyl ketone, spent pot linings such as KO88, and PCB contaminated articles and equipment that are on the B list. What are characteristic wastes? If the waste is ignitable, corrosive, reactive, or toxic, it carries the characteristics of a hazardous waste. Ignitable wastes are liquid waste with a flash point less than 140 degrees Fahrenheit or 60 degrees Celsius. Corrosive wastes are aqueous waste with a pH of 2 or less, or 12.5 or higher, and liquid waste that can corrode steel at a rate greater than 0.25 inches per year. Reactive wastes have the potential to explode or release toxic gases when mixed with air, water, itself, or other wastes. Toxic wastes contain metals, pesticides, herbicides, or organic compounds above regulated levels, including cadmium, lead, mercury, and methyl ethyl ketone. The third definition of a hazardous waste is waste that is mixed with hazardous waste. The mixture of a non-hazardous waste with a listed hazardous waste results in the entire mixture being considered a hazardous waste. If a waste is mixed with a characteristic hazardous waste, and if the mixture still possesses that characteristic, the entire mixture is still considered a hazardous waste.
Intentionally mixed wastes.
Dilution is not the solution.
Derived wastes are waste created from the treatment or other handling of listed hazardous wastes. An example on site would be filter cake from the wastewater treatment plant. Hazardous waste drums are red. Hazardous waste drum labels should be filled out with the contents, the area, and the specific location of the drum. If you add new materials to the drum, add that to the label. The drum must always be secure and tight when you are not adding material. When the drum is full, add the full date to the label. The drum must be moved to an accumulation area within 3 days from the full date. Never use empty product drums for waste. Now we will discuss non-hazardous waste.
Non-hazardous waste drums are green. Non-hazardous waste drum labels should be filled out with the contents, the area, and the specific location of the drum. If you add new materials to the drum, add that to the label. The lid must always be secure and tight when you are not adding material. When the drum is full, move it to the pickup area. Do not move drums around between departments.
When trucks are inside of a building, make sure to utilize the exhaust hose found by the ceiling so that we can prevent toxic fumes from accumulating inside. Used oil should go into the appropriate tanks. Be sure to label the tank. There is no clock on the tanks, but when one is full, arrange for a pickup of the liquids. Oily materials are handled on site. They should be disposed of in the green non-hazardous drums. Always make sure to properly fill out the label. Oily materials that are acceptable in green non-hazardous drums include oily personal protective equipment or PPEs, absorbents which might have been used in an oil spill, oily rags, and oily gaskets. This is not an exhaustive list, and you should contact your supervisor if you aren't sure what can be considered an oily material. These wastes are disposed of in an oily waste landfill. How do we handle aerosol cans? The contents of aerosol cans are considered a hazardous waste. Therefore, the contents should be disposed of in a red hazardous waste drum. There should be a drum-mounted puncture device to puncture the aerosol can. Always allow the cans to drain completely into the red hazardous waste drum. If the aerosol can is empty, it can be disposed of in the scrap metal bin. If the aerosol can is not empty or is unusable, it should be considered a hazardous waste. Batteries should be properly disposed of in the appropriate container. Place each battery individually in plastic Ziploc bags. Then place back batteries in the bins and close the bin securely. Fluorescent tubes should be placed in universal lamp boxes that are bought specifically for this purpose.
Waste minimization is crucial to Messina operations, and it begins with you.
You can contribute by reducing the amount of wastes.
Properly segregating wastes.
Marketing waste for other industries to use, and recycling waste where appropriate.
More ideas and suggestions are always welcome.
Now we will discuss materials management. There are rules that Alcoa must comply with when managing materials. One is the Spill Prevention Control and Countermeasurement Plan, known as SPCC. Another is the Release Prevention Control and Countermeasurement Plan, known as RPCC. Another is Chemical Bulk Storage, known as CBS. Another is the Major Oil Storage Facility License, known as MOSF. Another is Article 12 of the Navigation Law. Another is Title 40 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Part 112, known as 40 CFR 112. And finally, the New York compilation of codes, rules, and regulations, known as NYCRR. We should all be familiar with spill reporting. In order to meet the regulatory requirements for the reporting of spills, one needs to know what constitutes a spill. An oil spill, as defined by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, or NYSDEC, is an escape of oil from its ordinary container used in normal storage, transfer, or use, regardless of the media affected. It is important to understand that NYSDEC requires all spills to be cleaned up within 2 hours of discovery. Any individual discovering any spill must immediately report the spill to the Plant Security Office at extension 4500. The security officer will notify the Plant Emergency Response Technician, or ERT. The ERT will take the appropriate actions depending upon the severity of the spill. To clean a spill, spread an absorbent material over the oil and allow the oil to be soaked up. Then shovel the material into the appropriate drum. Now we will discuss emergency response. The Emergency Response Action Plan, or ARAP, is intended to be a concise summary of the information contained in the RPCC. A discharge is defined as a release, spill, leak, pumping, pouring, emitting, emptying, or dumping of petroleum into the waters. A spill becomes a discharge only when petroleum reaches waters of the state of New York. The plant's petroleum bulk storage tanks are licensed with the state of New York under the Regulation of Major Oil Storage Facilities, or MOSF, and are registered with the state of New York under the Chemical Bulk Storage Regulations, or CBS. Process tanks are not regulated by the state of New York. Alcoa's RPCC plan contains information on tank locations, tank capacity, substances stored, and secondary containment. Notice the cement wall that acts as secondary containment. ST-168 is a 4,000-gallon tank for unleaded gasoline, and ST-169 is a 4,000-gallon tank for diesel fuel. This diesel fuel pump is supplied by ST-169. Read all signs around the tanks and pumps. There is a 10-second delay after the pumps have been switched on.
Now we will talk about codes, rules, and regulations. Alcoa Messina operations must abide by the New York compilation of codes, rules, and regulations related to petroleum products. Major facilities like ours must first obtain a license. Facilities are required to have a spill prevention and containment plan. Requirements also include overfill prevention, secondary containment systems, and various inspections. Now we will discuss facility transfer. Operators and carriers must employ practices for preventing transfer spills and accidental discharges. Drivers have standard operating procedures for the delivery of petroleum. Both employees and contractors are required to be in constant attendance during the transfer of petroleum. The transfer of petroleum should take place within secondary containment whenever possible, or when not possible, alternate forms of secondary containment should be utilized. Now we will discuss signage at Alcoa. You will find signage throughout Alcoa, especially on storage tanks. Red and white labels, directions on filling out labels, green and white labels, outfall sampling location, danger, confined space, entry permitted required, zero sort recycling, non-recyclable waste, cans only, paper only, hazardous location class 1, speed limit 6 miles per hour, drive with caution, emergency eye wash station, fire extinguisher, good for all fires, caution, above ground petroleum piping, no smoking in this area, warning, persons wearing pacemakers must not enter pot rooms or rectifier stations due to magnetic field, no cameras allowed. And finally, the first and last sign you'll see every day outside the gate. Now we will discuss secondary containment. All of our petroleum tanks must be surrounded by impervious dikes or by steel or concrete containment walls. Alternate forms of containment in use at this facility include retention ponds, underflow weirs, and stormwater sewers diverted to impoundments such as the Central Impoundment Treatment Facility. Now we will discuss best practices. We try to prevent spills through best practices. Some best practices for handling petroleum include constant attendance by employees and contractors while fueling vehicles or filling containers, reporting all spills no matter what the quantity is or where the spill is located to extension 4500, keeping leaking mobile equipment in one location, preferably indoors on concrete or asphalt so as to avoid environmental contamination, containing leaks on mobile equipment before transferring the equipment to the audio shop for repairs, and always using secondary containment. Other best practices include cleaning up spills immediately, storing drums and totes inside, walking through doorways even if a garage door is open, and making use of the communications board.
This Control Act is enforced by the Environmental Protection Agency to protect human health and the environment. If you become aware of information indicating that a chemical substance at Alcoa may be causing a risk to human health or the environment, immediately report this to Ralph Bathel, Matt Barnes, or Tom Simpson.
You can contact Ralph Bathel at 764-4260, Matt Barnes at 764-4102, or Tom Simpson at 764-4405. In summary, every employee at Alcoa is legally responsible. All spills must be reported immediately and cleaned up within 2 hours. There are many resources for information, including the public Alcoa website for the internal Alcoa website, the Ethics and Compliance line at 1-800-346-7319, and of course, as always, your supervisor.
Thank you for watching.